Big news from the Seahawks today that Connor Williams has retired, and first and foremost, the best of luck to him in the future. The Seahawks have said he's retiring for personal reasons. They've not disclosed what those personal reasons are. Obviously, he's had a very difficult year with the injury, coming back to the NFL. Best of luck to him for the future, and I hope that he's okay. What it means for the Seahawks, though, is that they're now going to have to turn to Oluwatimi or somebody else on the roster to fill in this position. It's not ideal. They clearly didn't think the options on the roster were good enough, thus the signing of Connor Williams in the first place. And now they've got to finish the season with the centre position being a big question mark again. And then what does it mean for the future? It means that unless somebody really sort of nails this position over the next few weeks, they're going to be changing centres again in the off-season. Every single year, the Seahawks have a different centre. For all of the talk that you hear about the importance of consistency up front with your offensive line, how can you do that if you have a different centre every single season? Why has it taken them so long to find somebody who can just offer a basic level of consistency and competence up front? It's not necessarily that they have to go and find a Creed Humphrey level player, although obviously they could have had Creed Humphrey, but they drafted somebody else. But just find somebody who can do a job for a little while, even if it's just for 3 or 4 years. Find somebody who can do this position to a basic level that allows you to have consistency, that you can build an offensive line. You are never going to achieve that if you change your centre every single year. This has to be a priority next season. No sort of having a look to see who's available for $1 million. No having a look in August to see, is there anybody left that we can bring in because the options that we've either drafted or signed aren't good enough. Go and sort this position out. How can they do that? If Ryan Kelly's a free agent from the Colts, maybe go and sign him. Maybe go and draft somebody to go with him, double up on that position, have a current starter and then a succession plan. And then and sort of make sure that that position is secure for the long term. Heck, do it at guard as well. Like, for too long, this offensive line in Seattle has been an afterthought. I've just written an article on SeahawksDraftBlog.com sort of highlighting some of the opportunities Seattle has had over the last few years. Because, look, I've made this point as well. They've had some difficult, circumstances. It's not easy to draft the offensive line. A lot of teams have had issues drafting for the offensive line. No one's suggesting that they don't have those issues like every other team. But they've missed opportunities. Like, you look back at the 2021 offseason, they had handcuffed themselves to Jamal Adams by trading an obscene amount for him, which then prevented them from being a serious player in the bidding for Joe Thuney. Joe Thuney ends up signing a $16 million a year contract to go and play with the Chiefs. The Chiefs at the time were not the Chiefs as they are today. They had one Super Bowl ring, which is the same that Russell Wilson had had. Russell Wilson was in his prime, so there was still an attractiveness there coming to Seattle to play with Russell Wilson, to try and get back into contention. The Seahawks had a decent season in 2020, so presumably they were an attractive option to a free agent. Now, if you offer the same amount of money as the Chiefs, Joe Thuney might have preferred to go to the Chiefs. So what do? You outbid the Chiefs. Thuney gets a $16 million a year deal with the Chiefs. You offer a bit more. You can't do that because you've got to pay Jamal Adams. And lo and behold, Thuney signs the Chiefs in March. By August, you're paying Jamal Adams $17.5 million a year. That's even more than Thuney was on in Kansas City. The structure of the way that you've built your team, giving so much draft stock up for Jamal Adams, then forcing yourself to pay for him, meant you couldn't draft good offensive linemen in the 2021 draft, and Landon Dickerson and people like that were available, and then you couldn't go and pay someone like Joe Thuney because you had to go and pay Jamal Adams, who you'd already traded for. The whole approach to team building was flawed, massively flawed, and the ghosts of that offseason, not being able to build your offensive line as you would perhaps ideally want for the style of football that you want to play, throwing all that resource into someone like Jamal Adams, for God's sake, has left you in this situation where you have a crap offensive line, you're still trying to recover from it. Every single year, it's kind of Band-Aid after Band-Aid after, we'll go and get Laken Tomlinson, we'll go and get Connor Williams, we'll get George Fant because Abe Lucas isn't back. It's just permanent Band-Aids. This offseason, it just needs to be placed on a wall in the front office somewhere, in John Schneider's office. Fix the offensive line. Everything else is secondary. If you have to consider sacrificing somebody, whether that is a trade for DK Metcalf, and I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to pay DK Metcalf because I think he's a unique player and whatever. But you have to consider it. You have to see what's out there and you have to determine, is it worth paying him $30 million a year on average or more if the market shifts again? Or do you go and invest that money into your offensive line instead? Do you pay Geno Smith $40 million for next season, which is what he's going to get if he hits that $2 million escalator for yardage? He's already got a $38.5 million cap hit for next year. Do you pay Geno Smith that much money? Or do you just go cheaper at the position, accept that you ain't going to win a title in the next couple of years, probably the next 2 or 3 years? That window with an older quarterback who is of a certain level doesn't chime with where you are as a semi-rebuilding team. So, you're going to take all of that money, you're going to get cheaper at quarterback, you're going to take your lumps, you're going to build an offensive line. And you're going to rebuild your identity through that and save money there. These are the kind of decisions they've got to make because, look, cutting Draymond Jones and Tyler Lockett, or if he retires, or Noah Fant and all of this stuff, reworking Leonard Williams' contract, just signing DK to an extension to lower his cap hit next year, it's not going to be enough. You've got to do more than that. You've got to do more to create more money if you want to properly address this offensive line. And that has to be the priority. If you want to be a team that wins in the trenches, that plays a physical running style, that wants to give your quarterback enough time in the pocket to throw the ball downfield and be explosive, like I think Ryan Grubb wants to, you've got to be able to have an offensive line that can do those things. And the Seahawks too often get beat up on the offensive line. And now, their band-aid at centre is no longer there. They're having to turn to players that they've already kind of admitted aren't good enough by going and signing Connor Williams into the first place. And this has to stop. They can't be just going into the next offseason going, do you know what? We'll spend a pick in the first 3 rounds and that'll do things. Or we'll go and get the next version of Laken Tomlinson, or we'll bring him back for another $1 million and have him play again at left guard and hope that Christian Haynes will be a bit better, or Anthony Bradford will be a bit better. There has to be like a proper, aggressive approach to fixing this offensive line. And they've been aggressive in the past. They were aggressive in trading for Jamal Adams. They were aggressive in trading for Jimmy Graham. They were aggressive in getting Leonard Williams on a rental last year and then paying him a fortune. They've been aggressive even in getting Ernest Jones this year to try and fix the linebacker position. They've been very aggressive in getting rid of Jerome Baker and Tyrell Dodson. Can we please be aggressive on the offensive line next? That has to be the priority the next off-season. All the best to Connor Williams. O-line needs to be the priority next year.